Pursuit of Growth show, where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life to learn about their passions, successes, failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. As always, we'll end the conversation with key takeaways that we can all implement to better ourselves and, more importantly, the lives of those around us. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and good buddy, Sammy Gonzalez. Sammy, what's happening, man?
Greg, it is happening tonight. I'm really excited about this show, and I'm here to introduce somebody who we've had a lot of interaction with one of the former companies that I've worked for, in your current company, Vogel Alcove. So I want to introduce someone pretty special to the Dallas scene as well. George Esquivel. He is a native of Dallas and a proud Tejano, and is the co-founder and marketing force behind Four Corners Brewing Company. Prior to entrepreneurship, he developed his marketing career in brand management and business development roles with some of the top global food companies. Beyond CPG marketing, his career has consistently included a specialization in marketing to the U.S. Hispanic market. He studied advertising and marketing at the University of North Texas and currently serves on the U.N.T. Alumni Association Board, as well as the Vice President of the U.N.T's LatinX Alumni Network. He is married to Joanna Acosta Esquivel, with whom he shares the joy of raising their son, George Joseph. That is a fantastic intro, George. Welcome to the Pursuit of Growth show.
My God, it couldn't have been written any better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Well, George, I've got to tell you something that I thought was pretty cool on my drive home from work today. So I took I-30 from downtown Dallas, and as I'm driving down the highway, I look up and I see a beautiful Four Corners Brewery billboard. And on that billboard, I look up and I think, that looks like George, the gentleman that we're about to talk to in about an hour and a half. And in that beautiful picture, George, on that billboard, you're holding a beer, which leads me to my first question for you.
Yeah, looks something like that.
It looked very, very similar.
So I got to tell you, So I got to tell you that, we ran like some outdoor, out of home campaign billboards in DFW, and we got to tell you that we use the absolute cheapest models we can possibly find and pass the savings on to you. So this is actually pretty fun. It's we ran those boards early in the year, and a lot of our brewers aren't everyone else, and we ran them because we had two shots, and one's Local Buzz and the other one is El Chingon, and everyone's like looking around like, hey, why can't I be on a billboard? And we said, you can, let's do it. So there are about like 15 of them in and around kind of the Dallas to Fort Worth area. And if you see one, those are our employees. Those are people who tend the bar. Those are people who are brewing beer. Those are that's our company on that board. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty proud of the fact that we were able to do it, and it's a lot of fun for our brewers.
I liked it. I think that would fall in the resume. Like anytime you see a job description, you see that last bullet that says other duties as assigned. Yeah, I think that falls into that category, right?
Exactly right.
Well,
it's pretty
George,
fun.
If you're looking for two cheap male models, Sammy and I are open for business. So just let us know if you're looking for some consumers to feature on any of those billboards coming up.
Awesome. I interrupted your question. Go ahead.
Oh no, it was a great story, and it's actually a great lead into the question. So this is a hypothetical question, and being that you're a beer guy, we wanted to ask you a beer question. So George, if you could have your dream six-pack of 6 different beers. Now, here's the catch. These are the only 6 beers that you can drink for the rest of your life, but you can have unlimited refills. What 6 beers would you pick?
All right, that's a great question, and over great consternation, I would come up with this 6-pack here. So. And it kind of goes along with how beer kind of came into into my consciousness, and so the first one would be Duvel. It's a Belgian Golden Ale.
Yeah.
And aside from being delicious, it was one of those times I was whatever big marketed light beer drinker, and for the longest time. But I was always, beer is beer to me. And I had that beer, a long time ago. And I just remember it was just one of those moments where I go, this is beer. Wow. This is just amazing experience. And, you kind of learn about there were many things kind of coming together at the same time of kind of just beer, better beer, world of beer, a universe of beer coming into my consciousness and stuff. And part of that was through Michael Jackson, not the king of pop, but the king of beer. He was a writer and a real kind of Anthony Bourdain type before Anthony Bourdain, but he was a world traveler and wrote about beers from around the world, and had a chance to meet him and kind of be at a tasting at one of the beer places around here. I think it was a Flying Saucer. Okay. And but I tasted Duvel, and it was a Belgian Golden Ale, amazing. And then through kind of reading Michael Jackson, to even get it at the time was really a little difficult. And as another beer, number 2 was a Rochefort 10, which is a Belgian quadruple, and it's a Belgian quad, and it's the history of abbey style ales goes back to the 13th century, and brewed in monasteries, and it's a fascinating history. And that really kind of within those 2 beers really kind of took my mind to a whole different place of what beer is and what it could be, and really just started the fascination around just discovering beer. And there's and everyone, I always say everybody starts their beer journey in a different place, but mine started in Belgium with these 2 beers.
How difficult is it, George, to get either of those 2 beers here in Texas?
Oh, easy to get. I mean, you go to any of your bigger stores, you can find either one of those. Kind of battling that Rochefort 10 is like the Chimay Ale, which I should have chosen that one because it's in a big, like 750 ml. So if I get unlimited 750 mls, those are pretty cool. But yeah, it's look, it's they're in the Belgian section. It is a mind-boggling, deliciously awesome beer, and so it's a really great beer. So the Duvel Rochefort 10 gets you to Belgium, and the other one that kind of gets us from Belgium to Texas is
Short Flight.
What's that?
Short Flight, right?
Belgium short flight, yeah, Short Flight. But there actually is the story here is of Pierre Celis back in the 80s was brewing what we would consider now like craft beer, and here in Austin, Texas. And he had Celis White, and which I think you can still get around here. I think his granddaughter restarted the brewery, but he was he was a Belgian brewer, and he opened his first brewery in 1966. And but he was brewing beer in Texas by the 80s, but he brought this wit beer that to Texas with him. And he was from the hometown of Hoegaarden. And if you ever had a Hoegaarden beer, he's from the town. And if you go in old country, you go kind of town to town, everybody has their signature beer based on these hundreds of year old recipes and that sort of stuff. And he was from Hoegaarden and brewed this beautiful style of beer, which has become almost ubiquitous. If you drink Blue Moon, if you drink Shock Top, if you drink any of these beers, there it's this wit with coriander and orange and essence, and he was doing it back in the 80s, which is really amazing. So another inspirational thing that was kind of just out there, and I go, okay, I've tasted it, it's really different than what I drink, but it's I no complaints about that. I think so. That's what's that 3? Long answer for a short question.
This is great.
Yeah, Racer 5 IPA is
IPA made it.
Yeah. IPA has always been is always an adventure. It's a big segment in craft, the biggest in craft. And Racer 5 IPA was one of those beers. It's about the beer, but it's not the brewery. When we got to the point when we were home brewing back in 2002-ish, Racer 5 was just one of these beers that I just loved. I was like, man, it's so full bodied. It has so much character to it. But I also got into just what the brewery wanted to learn more about the brewery and what they're about. It's brewed by drawing a blank on the name of the brewery all of a sudden. I'll come up with a second. Bear Republic, sorry. And they're up in Northern California, up in just right above Sonoma. And just a cool brewery. I mean, at the time they weren't big, but they made just awesome beer, and fell in love with Racer 5 IPA. But during the brewing process, it's kind of a 2.5 to 3 hour process, kind of start to finish. So you got a lot of time to contemplate a lot of stuff, right? And it's like, what is? So I would always like sit with the Racer 5 and I'd look at the label. I go, man, if it was mine, I'd put a tachometer with the IBUs. And I put a something with the hop ingredients and stuff. And so I was always kind of, me and Steve Percary, my partner, were we always like sit and kind of just, what if the thing. So, over a lot of Racer 5s, we had a lot of time to think about brewing. What is that? 4? Dale's two more. Two more. Okay. Dale's Pale Ale, fabulous beer. But it was, they're putting quality beer putting craft beer in a can was a really radical idea back in, the 80s, 90s. And, beer was all in glass, and glasses had this prestigious, view about it. But, Oscar Blues Brewing was, based in Colorado. And so even still on the package, you'll see it's like pack it in, pack it out, right? So you can pack in good beer, but you can pack it out also. You don't carry on some heavy bottles and leave, the waste behind. So from that standpoint, aside being a great beer, very influential also. And then I got to take one of my boys along. So I'm going to take the Chingon IPA as my endless supply of Chingon. It pays the bills. It's taken us to wonderful places and allowed us to meet, a lot of really, awesome folks like you.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Every time we have that question, people immediately turn around to us and they're like, "Oh, so what's your favorites?" And we go through those, and mine's so seasonal. I change it up all the time, and I think because I'm also used to the question, I like to trick it up, and depending on the flavor of the month, right? I mean, once you get into this season now, you've got the Oktoberfest, you've got the winter warmers, the spiced ales and that kind of stuff too. And I'm a big fan of quads and all those dark, big, rich, bold flavors too. So I love the fact that you even elaborated on the journey behind each of those too, because I think it shows something special in your beer selections.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I would throw another one in that's we got started and inspired really by the Boston Brewing Company used to do this thing called the long shot contest. And you would have brewers, home brewers from around the US submit their beers to Boston Brewing Company, and they would select 2 winners. They'd also held the contest, internally of their company. And then they would announce the winners at the Great American Beer Festival. And it was really, really cool because they would scale up 3 beers, and then distribute it, nationally. So it was always kind of a cool thing to see. I mean, that really got us inspired to say, well, we should brew a beer and submit it. And it would always be something really wacky. It was always like a big stout or some, berry flavored something, and then an IPA of some sort. So, but it was always fascinating to kind of just, see the home brewers, champion in that way at the time. And I don't even know if they still do it. I think they might do it. It's just not so well publicized anymore. But yeah, that was always, I was saying, would it be one of the long shot contests? I can't even recall what those beers were though.
That craft beer movement, it was something that I know firsthand, because in Dallas, I don't even know when that swell started happening, but I was first introduced to the craft beer movement by my brother-in-law, who had, known about craft beer. He knew everything about every brewery anywhere. And like, you have to try this. And he has a really, really good palate for picking up like unique beers. So like his whole thing was sour beers. So that's how I got introduced to like these this craft beer movement was through sour beers, and then super dark quads and the Belgian ales and all that. Like, so his palate was very extreme. So what I would do in the craft beer movement when in Dallas was I always went, I knew the releases. Like I'd go see the breweries, I'd go wait in line at, the big box stores just to get my hands on the, you can only buy one of these.
Right.
Grab one of those. Then pay a guy to go in and get another one for me, and he'd bring it out to me and I'd go get it too. So, but talk about that craft beer movement in Texas. What around the range of time, and then like what you saw happening around the nation, because it sounds like you were inspired by the Northeast, right? Because of what they were doing, but then how did it come about around here?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I always say that we as a brewer, we were on the back end of the big wave. The big wave kind of happened, 80s to 90s and kind of into kind of 2000. But you could call it 90s and 2000, right? That's kind of where, you're very well known, Sierra Nevadas and Dogfish Head really started to gain steam. If you think about even like, Bear Republic, which isn't a huge brewery, today, but it's an important one. Back in like 2005 to 2009, we're winning, awards at Great American Beer Festival. And you can really build a business off of winning, medals, at that time. It really kind of set you apart and different. There weren't as many breweries back then. So it was just much more significant. And so that was kind of, again, with kind of just learning and being fascinated by not just beer, but breweries. And I think what's great is that, breweries represent their region, their locality. And they, if you even go, you go back to old country again, it's like, hey, you go to different cities in Belgium, they all have their kind of, and Germany, and, you have very different types of beer in different types of regions. And, I'd say that was, that's what, American craft still is reflected. And that started to really gain some steam to the 90s into 2000. And, Texas kind of came on board. I mean, I mentioned, Pierre Celis, way ahead of the curve. There was Pete's Wicked Ale that was kind of brewed in Texas, and that was way ahead of the curve. That was 80s. And in that time, I know we had craft brewers, well, not craft brewers, we have some brew pubs here in town. They pretty much all fizzled. And that was a kind of brief. So it was just a little bit, too pushing the envelope for, beer loving Texans at the time. But Austin really kind of got things going. I started to take notice of it about the time that we were kind of homebrewing, like 2002 to 2004 to 5, is that, Austin really started gaining some steam. And then Houston had some breweries opening there and doing quite well. And St. Arnold's, for example, I mean, I think they just celebrated their 20th anniversary, 25th. So, they've been at it for a while. And so Dallas, even as recent as 2010, decade ago, only had 2 breweries in the North Texas area. You can believe it or not. And
do you know how many are here now?
What's that?
Do you know how many are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area today?
50.
I was going to say, was it close to 50? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time when I could keep up, and between breweries and brew pubs, and I'd say it's probably close to 50 with still some legs to go. So it's grown really fast. I think the beer quality is incredibly high here in North Texas, and so it's been great for this market, and we're proud and blessed to be a part of it. But it was around that time. So I always say I think for us, we were kind of late in the national wave. We were kind of in the center of the Texas wave, but we were kind of up front in the Dallas wave, because within, we sold our first keg of beer in November of 2012. So we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. We sold our first keg November 12, and there were, two of them that were already, opening, and more kind of on the way. We could, and with a couple of brew competitions and that sort of thing. It's like everybody was announcing that they were going to be opening soon. So it was an exciting time. Still, I mean, it's still very exciting right now. I mean, 10 years of kind of the expansion of beer in North Texas, and the quality is really high, and you can find good beer all over town.
Yeah, well, George, speaking of finding good beer all over town, I guarantee you tonight, across bars all over this metroplex, people are drinking your beer, and they're having a similar conversation about what they're going to do with their lives. And I bet there's thousands of people right this minute talking about, one day I'm going to do this, and one day I'm going to do that. I'm curious to know, when you and your business partner, Steve, were probably sitting around having a drink or two and thought, you know what, we could start our own brewing company. What's the origin behind that, and how did that genesis to where you guys are today?
Yeah, I think there was some proving ground. We could kind of feel that there was some energy, in and around some like-minded people, right? And we were hanging out a lot over in Oak Cliff, and playing music or doing stuff, and there was Eno's, which is still there, as a pizza place.
Oh, yeah.
And great pizza.
Absolutely.
And Eno's was really interesting. So the guy who's running that place, his name is Matt. Matt was Eno's in general was like one of these first restaurants in North Texas to say, we're not going to serve. We're going to serve only craft beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a solution for light lagers. There's a solution for everything through craft. People just don't know it. And I remember it was kind of the first couple of weekends he did that, and he was getting hate mail, and I'll never eat there again. I can't get a blah 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 light, and and so he was, but he stuck to his guns, and in and around that energy was we just had a lot of fun, and having that chat with it all came back to the discussion of, why don't we have like beer culture like they do in Denver or Portland or San Diego, or pick any place else. I mean, it came back to that. It's like, why don't we have that here? And we should. We're a top 5 metropolitan market in the U.S., and we have a couple of breweries, and you kind of got to travel near and far to kind of get there and stuff. And so that kind of really got the conversation going. We met, Matt put on this homebrew competition behind Eno's, a little bitty parking lot back there. And we met some of the other home brewers, and actually we had a homebrew competition. We brought our beer. We played a set, and musically, right? We played a set or two with our band, and I think one of the other brewers had a band and they played. So I always say, man, like the brewers didn't show up, nobody would show up. And there was a handful of people, but if anybody tells you that they were there, they weren't there. I mean, it was like minimal. So we had a good time playing music and drinking our own beer.
So I got to ask the question though, what type of music, and what were you playing back then?
Yeah, so Steve's a guitar player, and I play Latin percussion and saxophone, and so I think it was more kind of a jammy type of situation. Okay. Back then, so we could we just play all day.
Trying to get the vibe of this party.
It was all about yes. And then some of the some of the other folks had some brew, and I think they were called the Happy Bullets. And they played, it was just fun music, man. It was just, it was Oak Cliff, man. Yeah. Oh, there you go. We got a guitar now.
If we need to do some jamming real quick, if you want to go grab your sax, we could try something here in a minute.
Exactly. So we had a good time, but it kept on the conversation, and we met another guy who was with another brewing group there, and it just kind of came together. We came together with this conversation about like, hey, look, if we should think about, we should do it, right? We should we need it. We need the culture here. And I remember going to Albuquerque for work. I don't know if anybody else goes to Albuquerque for work, but I stopped in, and I'll never forget it. So I was like, walking down the airport steps and whatever, and there's this little news magazine thing of like those little pony magazines. And I picked one up, and it had something to do with brewing. So I just put it in my briefcase. And later on, I was thumbing through it, and I was checking it out, and there was like articles about, you know, 4 breweries in the, you know, in the area of Albuquerque to Santa Fe. And I was like, man, Albuquerque has 4 breweries and Dallas has 2. There's something really, really wrong with this situation. So I came back and I actually visited a couple of them at the time, and just kind of stopped in and, you know, had a beer, looked around and go, they were tiny. They were the size of our, our R&D system now. And which is, you know, it's significant brewing and stuff, but I just came back with a thought that it didn't have to be big. It just has to be meaningful. And, you know, that we can do that. And so off we went on developing a business plan, and just kind of really kind of getting our heads around how this would work. None of us were from the beer industry, so we had no prior knowledge, but we had really good experience with what we had done before. I worked in, CPG marketing, so really food marketing and kind of retail. I knew that landscape. Greg, who was our third partner, he was a banker, so he understood kind of the financial side of things. And then Steve was, he was a brewer and could, it's all a figure it out type of situation anyway. So we thought we could start really small and have a little bit of brewing system at home, and it's like, hey, we'll just sell some beer to our favorite bars and that sort of stuff. And once we get into the legalities of all of that, we're really off on the wrong course. We were trying to fight TABC before we realized how futile that would be.
Yeah. I think anyone that's ever had a run-in with TABC from whatever work or whatever thing they've done, they understand that there's a lot that goes on behind that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't mess with the train, man. So anyway. Yeah. So the inspiration there was a moment of inspiration. There was a moment where intuition just kind of said, you should really do this. And we kicked it around for so long, honestly, that I'll tell you that there came a point where we're meeting again for the umpteenth time to kind of get we were trying to do too much, I think, at the time. And because we had so many ideas, it was just it's just an exciting conversation to have, right? So finally narrowing in on stuff, but it was time to my wife, literally, she said, look, you guys get together and drink a lot of beer, so either do it or don't, but you can't keep doing this. So I go, all right, I got the thumbs up. So
George, I feel like that needs to be like one of those motivational quotes with like you in black and white, like you see the meme on the internet.
Yeah.
That quote by your wife. We need to make that happen.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned your background in marketing and CPG and all that kind of stuff. And my background is in graphic design, marketing, PR, social media, that kind of stuff too. And I'm also Mexican American, so descendants. My mom's from Mexico, my dad's from South San Antonio, so I've got that heritage behind me too. I'd love to learn a little bit about your exploration into the brand itself for Four Corners. And I know the Mexican Loteria system. Like, I've played it. I still have a statue I won. It's probably up here on this shelf behind me. A statue I won on a street game one time growing up. So love to hear just a little bit about how that brand came about, and then the name behind it, that kind of stuff.
Four Corners Brewing Company, I know it's a really oddball name, but we, at the time, again, we were kicked this thing around, and there were many names that we would like to have, and they were taken. So that kind of negated those. But at the same time, you're trying to name this baby and have a vision for it and that sort of thing. And I think that's where one thing we did really well is kind of had a vision for what we were after here. So the vision was about culture versus how many cases of beer we're going to sell. So it was really about elevating beer culture and celebrating culture and telling our story of who we are and where we're from. And we were literally hanging out at I think it's Gloria's original restaurant, which is over in Davis and Llewellyn and Oak Cliff. And now Gloria's has come a long way since since they're beginning at selling pupusas and enchiladas on the same plate, which is fascinating, was really great. But it was a little mom and pop restaurant over in Oak Cliff, and across the street was Bolsa had just opened, which was at the time a farm to table cocktails and mixology and the whole bit. And then across the way is LCI Taqueria, walk up, taco shop in Oak Cliff, still there. I think they've raised their prices by 25 cents per taco over time. And then on the other corner was a little convenience store and a tire shop with impact wrenches and a bunch of noise and stuff going on over there. And we just looked at it and I was like, man, look, yes, we're going to brew beer, but if we could just package something up, it would be this corner. It would be what's going on here because it's inclusive. It is dynamic. It's colorful. It's vibrant, and it's old and new. It's young people doing their thing. It's old people doing their thing. No one's pushing anybody around. And it's just a happy community that's accepting of each other. And despite, resources or ethnicities, it's just, this is Oak Cliff. And we were trying to package that up the best we could. And how you name that, I don't know, but we came up with Four Corners Brewing Company out of that. It's like what happens on these four corners is really inspiring to us. And this is the culture that we want to show people. And in Dallas, I grew up here, I grew up on the West Side, and so a lot of, working class families, big families. I'm the youngest of 8. And in a 2-bedroom, one bath, house. So, it gets interesting. And, a lot of the families around there and it's like, look, at the same time, we have like the show Dallas, which is this really glittery thing that, was fake and fantasy and stuff. And so it's like, well, we're going to tell our story and that, what we consider to be our hometown. And that was Four Corners Brewing Company. We're really fortunate to find our designers, Christy Brinkman, who was referred to us by, there's a person I was trying to get to do some design for us. And he said, I can't do it. I don't have time. But, I know somebody who might be able to help you. And Christy was actually living in New York and moving back to Texas. And she interpreted Four Corners Brewing Company as a weather vane, so a rooster on a weather vane. And which I love the rooster was really great because there's roosters in the backyard in West Dallas to Oak Cliff, and number one, but they're really they're yard birds, but they're proud birds, and that described us pretty well too. So they worked out from a logo standpoint. It worked out, and so if anybody wants to see it, that's kind of the rooster logo.
Well, I was going to ask you, George, how many margaritas you threw back at Gloria's before you guys came up with the margarita. But
they made some strong margaritas over at Gloria's. They still do. They still do. Yeah, they still do. They pack a punch.
Yes, I say they're gasoline, no doubt about it.
They got their margarita game down. So that was how we came to be with the name, the logo, and then it's really like, okay, then how do you tell the story? One thing I could, from just a marketing background at that time, could go to the shelf and again, through this time that we were home brewing, I could look at brands and go, and just know that there is no marketing discipline whatsoever to their game. And I was like, okay, like every beer looks completely different. There's no cohesiveness to anything that they're doing. It's just so kind of just all over the place. And, it never made sense, like why they like that. And I realized that, okay, well, because they're brewers, they're not marketers. And and just like they would turn around and say, yeah, you're a marketer, not a brewer. So, fair is fair. But, I just like, okay, there needs to be, a set architecture for it. We wanted to be, wanted it to be vibrant, wanted it to be colorful. And much like, the culture, the vibe of where we were kind of the place we were coming from, wanted to represent that. And, you go to any of those little, tienditas, the little stores up and down the street, you're going to see loteria games at the little checkout aisles. And And I was, at one of them, and I was like, that could work. It's each Loteria card tells a story, but they all look like a brand family. They're very bright, they're very colorful, and it has just a lot of legs to it. You could just take this on and on. And I was like, man. And we had been researching. I had been researching a lot of names of like breweries and beers and blah blah blahs, and there were just so many taken. And I searched, a lot. That afternoon and evening, I was like, okay, somebody in California must be doing it. Let me check Arizona. Somebody's got to do it.
Wow.
And nobody. I was like, we're going. Yeah, this is it. So it's kind of established the Loteria card look, and again, Christy was just brilliant at executing design and doing the hand work on the creation of the artwork. It is hand done work. So I would say we're crafted not just on the inside of the liquid of the beers, but outside of the can is a crafted product as well.
George, taking a little bit of a step away from beer just for a second, I'm curious to know your thoughts on kind of a movement that we're seeing now in our culture with seltzer.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on kind of the seltzer movement? Where do you see that going? And we've seen a lot of beer companies produce their own seltzer. Kind of what are your general thoughts on that? And do you think this is going to be a trend that's going to last and stay, or do you think this is kind of a fad?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the consumers have spoken. They always do, of what they're looking for, and we were very aware that they were looking for something other than what I know as beer, we here, three of us here, but younger consumers are they're asking for a lot. They ask, as they always do, right? I mean, they're asking for, I want it to be light, right? I want it to be calorically light. I want it to be, have a lot of flavor. I want it to be made from really good stuff. I want it to know the origin of it. I want it, they say, I want. But, it's like, hey, look, this is what the consumers are demanding. And so, that's what they flock to. It's if you think about the seltzer, it's a really light, super light liquid. It's calorically, 100 calories, low in sugar. So it meets a lot of the, functional benefits of what they're looking for. I think it's a soulless product. It has no soul whatsoever. You don't brew it.
Yeah.
No one talks about the ingredients that goes into a seltzer. No one talks about the way we talk about craft beer of where we source, hops, and where we, it's like no one talks about that. We had been on a trek to satisfy that, and we launched a product. I actually have one here. It's the Buchalada product here, and so it's actually a brewed product. It's brewed with kombucha, and it's blended out with a seltzer. So it's a 4.5% product. It's really pretty. Let's see if I have a glass here. I can pour one and get one in a little bit. But it's a beautiful product. So I mean, seltzers they're absent of color. And I don't know. I'll get on my soapbox about it. I guess that's why you asked me the question.
Absolutely.
You get me all riled up. And I think look, it tells me that consumers are asking for something very different and from beer, and I think that happened with coming from food marketing. It's happened in food, where people said, "Hey, I want better," and what they got initially, you can get better now, right? You can go to a Whole Foods, you can get a frozen meal that actually tastes pretty good, and it's sensibly calorically sensible. It's made from good stuff, and so this is Buchalada. So you see actually color and fizz and stuff, and it's really delicious. And we'll be driving that out later. I won't give you the list of places to go right now, but anyway, it's Buchalada. But what you ended up with was like South Beach Diet, right? Or Healthy Choice meal. Remember Healthy Choice?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Green package. Ooh, it's got to be good. But basically they stripped out a bunch of stuff. They stripped out fat. They stripped out mostly fat, and they put in more sodium, but they stripped out fat. And so they gave you something that that was, okay, it hit a calorie, target, it hit a fat target, but flavors were horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't taste good. So taste always wins. So it's like, hey, a little more, okay, I'll take a few more calories, but flavor has to come through. And I think for, look, so they're here to stay, and it satisfies a need. But I think if I look past that and say, this isn't the end of the road, it's really about how do you really get them what they really, really, really want. And that's a challenge. And that's where, we come in with a very different type of proposition on kombucha. And look, you're going to see brewers have to step up the game, because it's just, there's this, really, there's 3 brands that drive that little segment, with a long tail of 200 other players. So it's got to elevate.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, but on Saturday Night Live they had a skit. It was either last week or the week before, and it was a take on seltzers. And it's like in a dorm room setting, and the guy pulls out, he's like, I got the new JCP, the new JCPenney seltzer, it's so good, whatever. And then when his buddy comes in, he's going, oh man, I just got the new Jiffy Lube, it's so good, And so like everyone's got a seltzer. And I think that goes to your point. I really like that you said that by and large, it is a soulless product. And I'm really excited to hear what you just described, what you guys are doing in your approach to it. And I am not an expert by any means in that industry, or even the beer industry. I'm just a consumer. But part of what I wonder is if we're seeing, kind of like myself and Sammy and you, when we were younger, we typically drank kind of your nationally distributed light beers that you could get anywhere. Well, as we got a little bit older and a little bit more mature in our palates, we started drinking craft beer and really started appreciating everything that we've been talking about to this point. I just wonder if a lot of especially the younger consumers of seltzers, are going to make that same transition. And if that's going to end up being a product that typically is geared more towards a younger consumer, I'll be interested to see if as people age and grow older, are you going to start seeing older people continue to drink it? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it'll be interesting to see.
It's amazing. I mean, young consumers they're going all over the place at the same time. So, when I was, that age, it was all about beer. It was, beer was every occasion. Now it's very occasion based. So, if they're going to be by the pool, it's seltzer. If they're going to go party, it's beer. If they're going to have a celebration, it's, sparkling wine. If it's a very, very special occasion, then it's wine. But then they'll mix in like, brown spirits, talking with, one of the guys over at one of the, local stores here, he's on the game all the time and runs a really good business, but he's not part of the big, the big chains of liquor stores, has his own little chain. But he says, man, the college kids come in and they're looking for the latest releases. They know when it's released. They know that I got a case of it, and they come in and they're looking for the for the Pappies and the whatever else is, and they're aware of this. So it's like this, they're all over the place drinking brown spirits, mezcals, and just kind of all over the place. So it's really kind of stripped out, the given occasions a real kind of segmented approach. And so, RTDs, ready to drink cocktails, are gaining steam. So it's wide open, man. It's always been about innovation. Pick any segment, and you got to innovate. So we're on the hunt as well as everyone should be.
Yeah, and Sammy, that made me think of like, when we were growing up, it was kind of like when it came time to like choose what you wanted, it was kind of like you only knew so much.
Right.
You kind of knew what the older kids maybe were drinking or recommended. So we had this very, very, I think, small knowledge base. George, when you were sharing that example, that made me start thinking, I mean, we live in the age where information is right here. Yeah. So, I don't know that I think I was 35 before I even knew what Pappy's was. Yeah. And now, you can be, 21-year-old kid, want to find what's some, interesting, very expensive, hard to get whiskey. boom, it's right there on your computer.
Yeah, it's their network. And, it has a lot to do with the consumption also, because, the thank God they didn't have phones when,
Right.
Yes,
in
agreed.
college years. But yeah, if anybody had the little whatever the camera and you didn't know what you got until you kind of got the film developed, whether it was a good one or a
Yeah.
bad one. But there's the insights that we can kind of gather from listening and talking with people is I'm going to drink better, I'm going to drink less, because I don't want to get caught on this thing being a fool. Number one. And then it's about the occasion. If I'm out by the pool, I want to be seen with blah 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 product. If I'm out at a happy hour, I want to be seen with a very sophisticated product. So it's all about building the self brand and and it changes the dynamics of what you're drinking.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I mean, you're talking about the innovation, right? You talk about the locality of different breweries, and that I love that story, because I think that your company has been able to do something unique in having a location that draws a lot from the local community. And we might have mentioned this before, but Greg and I used to work for the same organization. Greg still works there, but one of the things that we've done in the past was you've really integrated yourself into the community too. You set your roots down. I think the first, and I could be getting this wrong, but was your first location over at Trinity Groves area?
It was in West Dallas.
Yeah.
It was, and it was a part of town that I grew up in, a little further, west of there. Well, I mean, it was, first of all, when we again, vision wise is, we said we want to be have a brewery open here in Dallas. And as much as we said, hey, we're going to be very, Dallas focused, this is our town, this is our community. And back to Four Corners Brewing Company, we didn't want to limit ourselves to just Dallas with, Big D Brewing or something like that. But we did, it was important for us. And we made the conscious decision that, hey, we want to be in Dallas. We want to be proximity to downtown. That's the kind of, we want to be here in the backdrop. And we had looked all over Oak Cliff. There was just no place big enough to kind of hold what we wanted to do. The West Dallas area offered that. And so we went to what is now Trinity Groves, Trinity Investments, and they, leased us space there. And we were actually open before Trinity Groves was even kind of really solidified as a concept. But yeah, we were in West Dallas in La Bajada neighborhood at 423 Singleton Boulevard. And that was our original home. It was a Salazar's truck shop. It was a big rig shop. And as gritty can be, and me coming from food, I was like, there is no way we can produce, something that a human is going to consume in this building. But they made believers out of me. So we would have loved to stay there. It was a great neighborhood. And we had put down some strong roots there in that community as well. But it wasn't for sale and we couldn't expand on it. So, off we were on a different search, and ended up here in the Cedars, which is a fantastic neighborhood. And, really in this kind of the same, trajectory that West Dallas is going. And it's vibrant, man. I mean, we were just looking at, Cedars Open Studios. There are still many artists and artisans in the area that, talk to these guys. I mean, they had been in Deep Ellum at some point. They had been in Exposition Park. And so the Cedars is where it's at. A lot of really great vibe, and opening more and more, really, passionate people doing their thing. So it was, again, it was important for us to be in proximity to central, business district downtown. And so we found a fantastic place with a backdrop of, the south side of downtown.
And you've hosted so many great community events there too. I mean, there's so many times that, you've partnered directly with Vogel Alcove on like great opportunities to allow for the organization to go in there and like set up a booth during an event. You've had some really awesome car shows. I mean, I've taken my kids out there to see like all the what are they called? Like the bugs like all the
Yeah,
VW Bug Show and all that kind of stuff too. So really unique, really that car culture. I think it just fits. And I love the fact that you said like you're building out that culture too. And you give them back to the community too and been part of it. So it's a fascinating to see that someone's had that, the entire company's kind of had that forefront in their mind.
Well, it's funny. I mean, our tap room, is open. Again, we were closed for much of the COVID time, and it was just so great to open doors again and welcome people in. It's such a ghost town in there, and our GM of the tap room would tell you that he approaches it. We're a rec center that happens to brew beer. So
nice.
That's great.
Kind of approach. Yeah. Just, bring on the neighborhood. We love them all.
George, you and Four Corners have had just an unbelievable amount of success. This is a pretty wide open-ended question, but what comes to the top of your mind when I ask you, what are some professional habits that you think really helped you guys take Four Corners from the conception to where you guys are today?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that we did is we dedicated the time to talk about vision and really put down our vision, which was a very conceptual board. So it was literally vision board exercise. If you've never done that. Just like imagery, why it's important to you or to us. And so we went through this exercise, man. We threw a bunch of stuff on a table over Greg Leftwich's table and literally went around. And it was an odd, it's not an odd exercise for me, but for them, it may have been a little odd. So I need you to clip out a picture or a song or something and tell me why it's important to you. And so it was kind of this open-ended thing, and I still have the vision board, and I still go back to it. I think what we could take away from that was that we all wanted something that felt handmade. We wanted it to feel like that it had been established for a while. That kind of came back to Loteria, check mark that box. It's like it felt familiar. It didn't feel so just new. It wanted to feel like it was had some craftiness to it, like it's made with like hands. It wanted to feel a little gritty, but at the same time that there was importance in detail. So there was like a lot of like old guitars that were old classic guitars or classic cars that had been not modified but just restored. And so I think that's a lot of us, is just the duality of it's a very incredibly casual beer company that has some but if you look at the details, there's a lot of sophistication in what's going on there. It's not I think that's we've done that really, really well, and that came from vision. And so when it comes down to that establishing kind of tangible stuff, that was really helpful. I think what was also the vision discussion is you really set a North Star for what we were after. So we've never, the fact that we're still, we've gone through a lot of stuff and we're still friends and can hang out and have a beer and have a, and not talk about beer is really cool. And I think that had a lot to do with, it's like, hey, the North Star was always apparent to us and guiding us. And so decisions became easier. There's still difficult decisions to be made, but you could always point to that and say, does this align or not? And I think from a vision standpoint, it's important to do that. Align to that vision is always, whether you're talking about business or talking about your personal life, you gotta, the pursuit of growth is all about a vision for yourself that is, an improvement of who you are. Mm-hmm. And you have to align to it constantly, judge whether you're aligned to it, make decisions. And I think honestly, it's like you gotta really, you have to see yourself. You have to see the vision like alive in your mind, and then opportunities come, they just appear, and you have to know that you have to know that opportunity is calling you. And so it's like this intuitive mind thing. I think it's magical. It's been a really magical experience. And it, not that it introduced these thoughts to me, it more confirmed them in my mind, confirmed them that this is just the way we are supposed to live. I mean, we literally signed we have been, again, kicking this thing around for a long time. But as soon as it seemed like almost like instantly that we had signed an LLC. We had all pitched in some money to put in the bank for just stuff. And we haven't really raised capital yet. It was just kind of our just start a bank account. I think we all kicked in whatever, $250 or something. But we signed the LLC, and I got a call from Whole Foods, and Whole Foods calling us, right? And they said, hey, you guys are gonna be brewing beer soon. I was like, yeah. And so, well, when are you gonna be ready? I said, in about a year. But it was there, right? It was just like, it magically, the opportunities fall in your lap. Some good, some bad. You got to decide whether that's aligned with the vision or not.
Yeah, George, I got chills when you were talking about that. It made me think of, this is years and years ago, I heard a speaker talk about, his point was not every opportunity is for you.
Yeah.
And I remember walking away from that a little bit confused though. I was like, well, how do I know what opportunity is for me and what opportunity is not? And the answer to that question that I learned was, it goes exactly what you talked about. When you put your plan together, you put your vision, then you've got that North Star to be able to guide you and say, okay, well, here's this opportunity. Does it align with where I'm going? And in many cases, I've had to say no to things that are pretty cool. But you know what? I thoroughly believe it was the right decision because it didn't align where I believe that I'm really going. And so that gave me chills when you talked about that. That was really cool.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, you gotta listen to your intuitive mind on this stuff. And I think the mind, if you can, you keep your mind quiet at times, intuition takes over and makes a whole lot better decisions than than the conscious mind. It's just so inundated with stuff, right? And I mean, it might look like a great opportunity monetarily, but it's not aligned with your vision. You'll eventually be miserable as hell doing something that you're, getting paid really well to do. Right. And I've been in that position. Great paying job. I hated it. There's that. I mean, so collectively, that was kind of the guiding force behind it, and then from there, man, you're jumping at every opportunity that comes your way, in a sense, because you just got to get the word out, and you stay motivated. But there's the thing is, like, it was a really busy time. The first really 5 years of getting this thing going, but each time there was the energy kept on coming, doors kept on opening, more decisions to be made about it, and so it's like time was just judged by, okay, how much is this time would go by like nothing. It was, and I didn't feel like I was working. I was definitely putting in hours, like a lot of them, and but it was a joyous time, and I think that's, how do you know you're aligned to your vision? I think you're joyous, your time is kind of limitless and free, and ideas and solutions kind of just show up, you kind of give it that time, and there was, solutions would kind of, come our way. We worked hard, again, just, you got to nurture it. You got to honor that vision all the time. And the more we were doing that, the more opportunities that would come our way for success.
Yeah, that path to success, right? I mean, wherever you are, people think it's very linear. It's like, oh, especially if they don't know the story, they don't know how long you've been around or whatever. They think it's like your overnight success, right?
Right.
But we all know that it does this, right? Those ups and downs. So I'd like for you maybe to describe, maybe in your professional career with Four Corners or before, and just maybe through life, is what are some of those ups and downs you face? Like, what are some of those challenges you faced, and how did you understand how to get out of those or work through those and push through those?
Yeah, so there, I mean, like, this is, again, we were figuring this stuff out as we were, yeah, it really felt, I mean, kind of looking back, I felt like we were those parkour people, you know what I'm talking about? They're
Yeah.
like, they run and then they jump over something, that inertia kind of keeps them tumbling and they're running to the next thing and then they jump and they swing on. And it was just like, you got to keep the inertia going in order to just get past a hurdle. And lo and behold, there's no hurdle in front of it. But you keep the inertia going, and you have another kind of, you just come up with like a very natural solution. It looks very fluid, right? It looks like they just kind of flow through the stuff. And what you don't see is all the failures in the process of them trying this stuff. But I mean, yeah, the really good ones, man, they make it look easy. And I think that was kind of it. It's just like, you know, the stumbles and the stuff didn't slow us down. We just like, it's like head first into this adventure. And then and the more we did that, the more just conviction and you know, you just get, you know, the hubris builds up, and it's like, man, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, keep on going, keep on, you know, just keep on going, tumble through it, right? Tumble, keep the inertia going, and head on to the next, you know, the next obstacle. And you know, we literally, like, you know, we went through a lot of trying to figure out, you know, how do we get our stuff distributed, how do we this, and you know, if we were to sit down and just, you know, get bogged down and no, it won't work because of this, man, you get nowhere. You just got to just like, okay, well, here's how we're going to do it. If it's wrong, we'll correct it. And that was just kind of the you know, the thing.
That's like
And
the analysis paralysis, right?
Really, yeah, you could really bog yourself down talking yourself out of stuff. And when you should be, you know, are we making progress? And yes, we are. No, we're not. But yeah, yes, we're going to make progress. We're going to, you know, despite a tumble, despite a this or that, we are still moving in that direction, and that's a good thing.
George, speaking of progress and distribution, you've successfully partnered with Constellation Brands, which, if I'm correct, I believe is the third largest distributor in the U.S., second largest distributor in the U.S.
Beer company in the U.S. Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be number one in the next 5 years. Yeah, so yeah, we so crazy. Yeah, the crazy story is, I mean, literally, like, sold our first kegs of beer in 2012. Scaled to outgrew our space that we thought we'd be in. We thought we'd be in our space till 10 years. That was kind of our, okay, and yeah, we'll outgrow the space in 10 years. We outgrew it in 5. And, you know, by year 3.5, we were already realizing that we need to either increase space at Singleton, our original space, or find a new space. And we were forced to find a new space. And so kind of really delayed us. Even still, we're growing. And we made a big bet on the Cedars location. And you know, had tested the waters on a couple places to kind of give us the gumption to go that big, because it was big. It was a sizable project. But we did it, and we, you know, again, how the magic works is, you know, we had launched, so we got our distribution beyond within Texas. With, you know, most of Texas was filled out by by 2015 or 16 or so. Yeah, by 16. And while we were building this thing, so we had to like dismantle a brewery, move stuff over, new equipment, everything was, you know, it's a new place. Open that place up, stay in business, and with delays on equipment and delays. Thank you, everybody, for all the delays. But we finally got open in November 2017. Late in November, we had a visit from some folks from Constellation Brands, and you know, had an initial conversation with them. and which I thought was gonna be like, hey, it's a meet and greet. We'll come check you out. We'll talk to you guys when you're bigger, and we'll move on. But they love the brand. They love what we were doing. They love what we were all about. And we went through an acquisition in July of 18.
Wow.
July of 17, July of 18. Yeah. So it's been a couple of years now. So it's CBI is a big company. Constellation Brands is a big company, 10,000 employees. They have the biggest brewery on the planet in Mexico City. They have Modelo, Corona, Victoria, Pacifico, these monster, import brands. Modelo will be the #1 selling beer in America in the next 5 years. Yeah. Wow. So it's
pretty cool company, right?
What's that?
I said pretty cool company to be a part of.
It's a cool company. I mean, but look, we're a very small fish among the big giant company with some big mega brands. I mean, these brands sell in the hundreds of millions of cases of beer, and it's a lot of beer. And so, we have our challenge. It's a whole new set of challenges to break through. But we take them on, and I think one of the we kind of go back to the beginning of this conversation. So everybody starts their beer journey, and where does it end? So the beer journey, reading a book and meeting Michael Jackson, who's this beer traveler guy, and you really get turned on to world of beers and American craft, and you follow that journey to home brewing, to starting a brewery, to scaling a brewery, to working within one of the second largest brewery in the U.S. It's just so it's a very it's a journey. It's where my beer journey has taken me and us, and it's pretty damn fun. And it's fascinating. It's not short of challenges, but I could be doing a bunch of other stuff. I was selling milk for a long time, so that I can tell you all about milk. I can tell you about yogurt. Yeah.
Well, George, how about this? We're going to have you back on the show, and we're going to do nothing but talk about milk. How about that?
Let's do it. Oh yeah. It'll be a 2-minute show, so it'll be great. Join us.
You talk a lot about that's so fascinating to just hear about that really was a very small and short time frame, of like just knowing like where you were to where you've been, and now talking about like the company you keep now, right? Literally your company that's around you too. What are some of you talked a lot about the vision, right? And so what are some of the things now that you have integrated, or what are maybe some of those goals that have changed a little bit now by being part of this larger company? What's that vision board still look like? Are you still true to that more than anything, or have you added anything to it?
Yeah, no, I don't know we've added anything. I think the vision board still stays true. I think we have to reestablish kind of, okay, look, the things that got us where we aren't going to be good enough to kind of get us to where we want to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a whole like mindset, a shift in mindset for us as a group, our Four Corners group. And by the way, it's been, we still have we play for keeps at Four Corners Brewing Company. So, you come over to the brewery, talk to these guys. Again, we launched in 2012. We've got some, Mike, who runs the, very expensive canning line, was our original, delivery driver. You guys who are brewing on this, fantastic equipment were delivery drivers, or they were, cellarmen. They were, so they started out and they've learned their way through this to success with us. And you go back to this, having them on outdoor boards. No, I am happy to see them on a board, because man, they've worked their asses off to help make Four Corners what it is. But I'd say the things that we've done to get us in a position where we are now, we have to think really different about where what our capabilities are, which are increased, and really drive to kind of a new destination, which is got to listen to what consumers are asking for. We kind of talked a little bit about that, and how do we satisfy that need before they ever know that they needed something. And I think that's the way magical products, the real great ones, satisfy a need that people didn't even know that they had. And I think versus following, being fast followers, that doesn't work for us. We have the tendency to be kind of, let's go way out there in the water, and in the innovation water. Yeah.
For the viewers that aren't kind of in an area in which they've had your beer and maybe not had some of the beers at the very start, one thing I wanted to point out, which I don't know, maybe you can tell the whole story about it, but one of the very unique things about your beers, outside of like the variety of flavors and the artwork, and it's so unique all around. But one thing that always stood out to me was the 360 top. And what people don't know is, like, whenever you would open a can, like you see this here, you pop this and then you drink out of there, right? Well, that was one of the things, whenever you would pop one of your beers, the whole inside would come out, right? So it'd make a cup. So talk a little bit about that, because it's fascinating.
It was yeah. So those well, I'll answer the question that everybody always continues to ask, although we've not used those lids for a couple of years now, is they just quit manufacturing them. So they're not even available if we wanted them to be used. It happened around the time that the acquisition happened, so everybody assumes that they forced us to not use them, but it has nothing to do with that. Like there's one company that made them. It was their patent, and they could never get scale out of them because discarding that amount of material is against some environmental protection laws or litter laws in many states. So it's only legal in 5 states, if I recall, Texas being one of them, because we legalize everything except weed.
Yeah.
But they're legal. So we use them. We were kind of just the first to integrate them. In fact, we got so excited about them, like when we ordered our original canning machine, like it had to have like certain configuration for the seamer heads and the whole bit. We're all in, and we just thought they were awesome. A really different experience, and it just it really gave you the full experience. I mean, you're drinking an IPA, I mean, if you're a wine drinker, imagine drinking wine out of a little bitty hole on the side of a can. You don't get any of the nose of it. You don't really get to see it interact with the product, and it's all part of the sensory of drinking a beverage, especially with something like an IPA or one of our beers. So we thought they were great. It's just like, they just don't produce them anymore. So we were among the first to in Texas to use them, and we use them consistently. And they were a bit more expensive to put on. And I was cool with that. It's like, man, as much, you would show up to a party and it's like, what the hell are you drinking? Oh, that's a Four Corners beer. It's like, wow, that's really, really cool. So for 30 seconds or a minute of discussion around a beer that was, Four Corners, I was like, yes, I'll pay an extra 0.5 cents for that.
Yeah, I mean, I still talk about it to this day. And when we talk about beers and people, you hear that sound that we all know, right? Yours sounded different, right? It was completely.
It was so cool. Yeah, it was so awesome. And look, if we could do it, we absolutely would. We miss them a lot, but yeah, we had a goodbye party for them. We played Boys to Men, into the road. And we had a farewell to the 360 lids a couple of years ago.
I love it.
Well, George, this is the part of the show where we start winding down towards the wrap up. So Sammy and I asked 2 questions to all of our guests, and so we're going to ask you those 2 questions. And then I can already tell you it's going to be difficult for Sammy and I, but we're going to try to take 3 things that we've learned from this conversation to share back with you.
Okay.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to stall a little bit because I've got a page of notes here that I love where this conversation has taken us. But the first question that I want to ask you, so, we've talked about growth and the journey that you and Four Corners have been on. But for you personally, as you've grown professionally or maybe personally, can you share maybe something that you've incorporated over the last several years that you think has been a big impact player in terms of where you've gone, again, either professionally or personally?
Yeah, no, professionally and personally. I think there's 2 concepts that are really heady. Hopefully not too heady. But I mean, the first one is about vision, and about having a vision for you that is really, really vivid, and like really vivid. Like the more detail, the better. And so this is the where it's inspired by a very quiet mind. So whether that's meditation or prayer or whatever process you get there, is you got to get the noise out and let the stillness be, just be. And when you just be, then there's an inner mind, an inner voice, an inner intuitive self that comes to light and will guide you to a vision, to a something that is calling you, and you got to honor that. And honoring that is it's not the difficult part, but it's that's the challenge of fighting off, like, well, all the reasons why you can't achieve that vision. And I think there's an idea of there's a really great book, if you get a chance to check it out. It's an old one. I think it's from like '98 or something. And it's called it's called Flow. It's by I always screw up his name. It was Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay.
And
I've never heard of this.
It was like a bestseller back then, and I didn't get turned on to it, but it's really about approaching life from a state of flow, which is engagement, and which is about being in aware. It's about awareness. In sports, they call it like in the zone, right?
Oh, yeah. And
you've heard of the Michael Jordan stuff. He's talking about, like, man, you hit the game-winning shot, and it's like, how do you elevate yourself? It's like and he says, the basket was this big, I couldn't miss it. Yeah. And it's just about where
flow state.
Yeah, flow state, right? Mm-hmm. And learning learning to be there, how to get there, what that feels like. If it's like, man, when I'm there, it's amazing. But getting yourself in that state of mind is really important to kind of get to that vision, with I don't know, faster, but with conviction and knowing that you're moving in the right direction. So kind of two really heady concepts, after a couple of beers and stuff. It's like now we're really into the IPAs now. Yeah. But man, I've this is like, for me personally, is where I spend a good amount of time in trying to be in that zone. And it's, so what it energizes me to do is like, okay, I am nowhere near done. I am just getting started with all the stuff that's in my head. And so the pursuit of growth is still very alive and well, despite a lot of success we've had at Four Corners Brewing Company. But no, there's a lot of opportunities that are in my mind that I am I literally have to make a decision of like, okay, I'm moving in a different direction here, at some point.
Well, George, I just finished my most recent book. I'm an avid reader. I finished it today, and I have a list of new books that I will be taking upon myself to read towards the end of this year. And I'm going to go ahead and jump Flow to the top spot. So I'm going to get that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's a good one. And there's study notes out there, like on YouTube, that you can kind of go back and kind of check down and stuff. And I said, guy who does a really good one is like Joseph Rodriguez, Rodriguez. I think that's how he spells his name. And he's he's a entrepreneur, but he's also kind of a life coach type of guy. And he does some really cool YouTube stuff like you guys are doing. And sometimes that's a real good, if you want to tiptoe into it, that's kind of the, I call it the cliff notes of going and reading like Neville Goddard, which are like the 1954 books and stuff. But I think conceptually they all still apply in the fact that people were talking about this and, in a very, back in the 40s and 50s, in a very like blue collar worker America, it was pretty radical, So, I think they're more valid now than ever with all the noise that we have, with all the technology that we have, gumming up our lives and stuff. I mean, my God, if you're going to use this, use it for good,
Right.
Yeah.
So the second question that we would like to ask all of our guests, and this one's a little bit of a kind of a hypothetical question here and as well, is so bear with me as we explain this. So we, as the Pursuit of Growth community, are going to create a time capsule, and we're going to bury this and we're going to dig it up in 10 years. So you as a guest get a chance to write down a note to yourself, and we're going to put in this time capsule.
Okay.
What would you tell your future self 10 years from now? Everyone's heard the story. Everyone's heard the question, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago? Now, what do we want to tell yourself 10 years from now?
Tell myself 10 years from now. Okay.
Yeah, dig up that time capsule. What would it say? The note.
Okay, I'm trying to get my head around this thing. So I'm going to write a note that I'm going to tell myself in 10 years.
Yep, you're going to dig it. And Greg, we always go through this because Greg and I, we fashion this question in a little bit different ways, but it's the time.
It's a great question.
Right?
Yeah, I just have to get my head around it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, what advice would you give your future self?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, it might be a question, but it might be just a statement. It's like, okay, look, so it starts with the belief, right? I think my belief, and I say it's a belief, and it's people say I believe it from the bottom of my heart. Okay, okay. I don't know where that is. Okay, but it's an emotional place. I believe it like at when I say I believe it at like cork level, right? At the very basic of everything that we know in our existence right now is just total vibrational energy, that every outcome exists right now. It already exists, right? Every outcome exists. You have to align yourself to it. Okay, it's up to us to align ourselves to the outcome, and it already exists because there's what quark theory, or what the theory says that every outcome is possible. So why not choose the one that you want?
Right.
You with me? So
absolutely.
I think the question, either the question or the statement would be, did you, it's like, okay, I would write down the outcomes and see if I actually achieved them.
Wow. Yes.
That is awesome.
The thing I like about that, it's almost like a more sophisticated, a little bit more introspective way of kind of explaining the law of attraction. It's kind of taking it to that next level, right?
Yeah.
And so I really, really appreciate that. Sammy, that's good.
That is a good one. And honestly, that's the first time that's been approached in that manner. So many people have so many different ways of thinking about that, but I don't know, Greg, if you picked up on this, but, and I think the audience will have picked up on this too. We are just scratching the surface on who George is, at a fundamental level, right? And I think that that's deep. Like, that gave me goosebumps deep, because I think that so many people have a lot to offer in that realm of thinking too. And so many people need what you just said as well, right? We talk about stress, we talk anxiety, we talk about like keeping up with the Joneses, like the world that we see through, our phones, right? It's all curated, right? But sometimes you got to have the headspace, but then two, you got to understand that those options are there for you as well. And so again, that was heavy, but that was awesome.
I'm going to suggest
it's it's faith, and it's just and you committing to, again, it's like, you gotta, it's the vision, alignment, constant alignment and being and being aware of what's going on. I mean, this week alone was, really interesting. Okay, okay, something tangible, right? So I'm a runner, but I'm training for a marathon, and I wrote it down. This is 16-week trainer. I run all the time, but it's like, okay, I'm intense. So 16-week trainer, and I wrote it down. 3:45 marathon on November 6th. I'm going to run a 3:45 marathon. And so, man, I was like, boom. And, it was like the workouts are working out and things are happening and stuff. And then I got this like Achilles thing that has a physical thing, right? And one of the truths about, getting to your goals and getting to your vision is that, hey, the universe is going to throw the book at you of why you can't do it. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to not train, and I'm not going to back out of this race. That 3:45 is still out there, and I have to decide how badly I want that. So, and I was like, really like thought about it. It's like, man, I think I just need to last thing I want to do is have some, lasting injury or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm going to, and that's, I'm going to run through pain or something. I'm going to have to approach this in a very different way than I had intended to. And that's where you just, okay. And like, as soon as I made that in my mind, I accepted it and said, I'm just going to find a different way to get there. Then look, I started to bounce back, feeling better, feeling very confident, feeling, the whole thing. So it's like, so I'm back on the tracks. Like, man, 3:45 marathon is November 6th.
Yes.
And that's the reality I'm going to go achieve because it's there for me. And I just got to go and do it.
Isn't it amazing, the power of the mind? And I think I've seen this quote attributed to several people, but I think most often Confucius, but it says, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both right. And when you make up your mind that you're going to do it, man, that's a powerful thing if you really got that resolve. So, George, that fires me up. I love it.
Yeah, man.
Love it.
Yeah,
well,
Neville Goddard has one, and I mean, he's like, it's great. It's like, part of the stuff that you kind of learn over time and stuff. He says, you change your conception of yourself, and you automatically change the world that you live in.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's a mind thing. It's a mind thing, and and if you're spending your time taking in other people's concept of what you should be, then you're just off in a different space, right? You gotta, you gotta.
Sammy, what do you think about? Let's see if we can't convince George to do a part 2 of this show, but we do it at the tap room in person, and we just focus strictly on mindset and mental fortitude.
Yeah, I agree. There's again, I think one, we've been able to really understand who you are in your journey you've been on, but again, we're scratching the surface. That's all that, because one of the biggest tenets of who we are, Greg and I, it's that mindset. Mindset matters to us as well. I'm a big runner as well. I just had a major setback, but I had to come to terms with it as well. And so your stories really resonate with me, and I would like to dig in a lot deeper into that mindset and that vision and everything else that you have. So if you'll have us at the tap room, we'll graciously
drink.
Some
people.
Yeah, we'll graciously drink all night and have some great conversations as well.
There you go.
All right, well, Sammy, let's do our 3 takeaways. This is going to be a tough one.
This is different. This is all I was writing so fast that I have scribbles everywhere too, but I've started a couple of things here. So Greg, do you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You go first. We'll ping pong back and forth.
All right. So one of the very first things that you said that I love so much is that, and it's a thread throughout this whole conversation. But one of the key takeaways for me is that you built the vision, and then you kind of built the product. And all of almost my entire notes are about vision. So I'll just do a teaser there. But I love the fact that the vision was the culture. How do you bottle that up, and then how do you sell that? Because as a marketer as well, we're always thinking about that, but you did it. You were able to encompass that. And I think that's really key for people, especially entrepreneurs, having that vision and building that culture.
Yeah, Sammy, my first one, I love when George said, keep the inertia going.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies with literally the entire pursuit of growth lifestyle and what Sammy and I believe in. And so ultimately, we believe there's 11 focus areas of life that as people, we should be pursuing growth in. Because at the end of the day, it's going to go well for us. And the key is it's active progress. It's not finite solution. And it's all about that inertia. And you talked about that inertia is what helps you get through the challenges and the obstacles and the trials and the setbacks, and you keep going. And so that really resonated with me. Keep the inertia going.
My literal second one that I was going to say was keep the inertia going, but I wrote an arrow that came out of it. So luckily I was prepared for you to steal that one from me. But we talk about keep the inertia going, but you mentioned two words, progress checks. And I think that's key. It's like, I think so many times a lot of people can keep the inertia going, right? They'll set the goal, but have that time, and it plays with one later, have that time to have those progress checks along the way, really see where you are. Because if you don't know where you're going, you know, what do they say? Like like whenever you're traveling somewhere, right? 1 degree off here doesn't matter, but can be, you know, miles and miles and miles apart. So keeping those progress checks, going back to the vision again, I think is key.
I loved when George said, what if? He shared the story about looking at the beer can. He was like, well, what if we would add this? Or what if we would add that? And I think it's that curiosity that if you can apply it to your professional life, you can apply it to your personal life. There's so many things that curiosity can open up. And we talked about opportunity earlier. Opportunity usually is generated by having a curious mind. And that was just a really, really cool story. I appreciate you sharing of just looking at a beer can and just simply asking, what could we do different?
And my last one, which again, I'm looking at all my notes, is like, I can't cheat and just like say all 300 of them that I have here, but I'm gonna pick this one because I thought it was very unique. Is you're so dedicated to vision, and that's really one of the threads that I pulled out of this entire conversation. But you mentioned it in a unique way, that you're so dedicated to the vision because you want to honor that vision. You want to honor the craft, right? You wanted to honor the community. You wanted to honor yourself, right? Your vision for what you had. And I that was a unique perspective that I pulled from that, because I've never heard that before, that you're so dedicated to the vision, right? You have everything around, but you want to also honor it, which I think elevates it one step more to like, you are.
Look, I mean, this is a privilege to me, you know, to do this. I mean, the joy in my gig is, yes, there's free beer. You know, that's a joy, but the joy is being able to meet people that I would otherwise have never ever met, and you know, and that's over a beer or, you know, whatever, a chat. And there's fascinating people. I mean, my God, we have some short films that we produced that just, you know, again, just sprouted from a discussion over beer, and luckily we had, you know, camera crew around to capture them. We'll have those on our website here pretty soon. They're really great, and it's you know, yeah, you know, honoring the outcome, honoring the vision, honoring all of it. This is a, you know, it's been, you know, I could be selling yogurt, and I was like, no, I get to hang out with some really cool people, brew some beers, talk about beer, talk about vision stuff. I mean, this is like, ask me shit, you know, 2002, if I'd be talking about vision stuff with some dudes about beer, it's like, no, that's a really weird, you know, thing, but here we are. And so no, you know, it really is. I where we started this thing is like, I'm very grateful for this discussion. I'm absolutely grateful for it.
Well, I'll wrap it up with my third takeaway. And again, just like Sandy mentioned, I've got 15 to 16 things that I could take on. And don't think that I'm not gonna use the quote that you shared about your wife earlier, telling you that you've got to make a decision and stop drinking beer with your buddies. That's got like 5
There was some
stars.
there was some other, that was a synopsis. Those weren't the exact words.
Those are the exact words, right? But I'm going to go with the quiet, the clutter.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the conversation we had around that. And you talked about the importance of whether it's meditation or prayer. For me, it's both. And that's, I think, one of the most important habits that I've incorporated in my life over the last several years is making sure that every day that I spend time, and I have a minimum of 20 minutes that literally I have to have that time just to get my mind right, to get myself focused, to get myself ready to take on the day. And I don't.
Have you ever not done it?
Enough.
Sorry.
In the past 5 to 6 years, I can answer no. I've never not done it. Even if it's in the drive in the car and turning my radio down and saying, you know what, I'm going to use this 10 minutes here, or if it's in the shower and maybe it's only for 5 or 6 minutes, but it's for me, it's a habit, just like brushing my teeth every day. I've got to do it because naturally, when I don't, I fall into a lot of just really bad habits and thoughts. And so
and that's what I'm getting at. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, look, again, avid runner. If I don't run, at least, if I just don't get out there and just like do it for 3 or 4 days, my body says, you need to move. You need to move. You need to get your body moving, and it sends the messages out. And I think much like that, when I miss the quiet time, whether it's travel or something, you got to find time to do it. But the times that I've missed it, you feel it. You feel it, and it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling because you know that you've got to be closer to that. There's something in there that is valid and important and valuable. And to get in that habit, to be spiritually fit is important.
I'm actually working on a blog right now that kind of talks about some of my hacks around how I've developed that into a habit, because I can't tell you that every single day I've got that 20 to 30 minute spot that just works out perfectly, because to your point, man, life is shifting and changing and evolving, but I have learned some hacks to when I've got one of those days that just things are different. Traveling is a big one, right? But I figured out things that I can do to make sure that I still get that time or still go through that process to kind of just get my mind right, and then let me take off for the rest of the day.
That'd be a good book. That's a good. That sounds like a winner. All
right. Well,
okay. So the next round, the next round of beers on me.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Well, this is the point of the show where we want to say, obviously, again, thank you for everything, but give you that opportunity for that shameless self-promotion. So where can people find you? How can people get a hold of you? If you want to if you want people to get a hold of you, you tell us how, and we'll let people know how.
Okay. So like Four Corners Brewing Company, we're distributed across Texas. If you're from the outside areas, then come on down to Texas and grab some beer. We can't ship beer out. Tap room is located in the Cedars district. We're at fcbrewing.com, our website, and give you a bunch of information of what we're doing there. Check us out, because we're going to be loading up we're in the middle of a revamp of the website, but there's some fascinating stories that we're going to be posting on our website around the lives of other people that we've met. Again, back to people living their vida, expressing themselves through their craft. That's kind of one thing we didn't touch on, is like, this is like this experience for me and for many of us here at Four Corners is like, we get to express ourselves through Four Corners Brewing, whether that's brewing beer, designing stuff, telling our stories. And we've met a lot of people along the way who do the same thing in their own ways, and we'll honor them in video form. And then check us out. But other than that, pursuit of growth is where it's at. And I'm not a whatever. You need my time or something, then we'll find a way to get that done. I don't know, there's much more on my mind, but I think we're good on time here. So we'll go for round 2 next time, and maybe get a little more concise.
Love it. Well, George, thank you once again. And for everybody that's watching this show, check out our website at thepursuitofgrowth.com, where you can see additional episodes of this show. You can check out our weekly 1 Minute Matters blog, and you can purchase the book, The Pursuit of Growth. And thank you, Sammy. And all your wildest dreams will come true. There's no doubt about it.
If you want them to.
Bingo. George, once again, this was so much fun, man. This is why I love doing this show. It's conversations like this.
It's the beer talking, not me. Okay, thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.